Top story, inmates at the Guantanamo Bay Detention Center clashed with guards during an attempt to end a 2-month-long hunger strike there. Officers tried to forcibly remove detainees from communal living quarters and put them in individual cells. Non-lethal rounds were fired at prisoners when they resisted with improvised weapons. Guyan H. Chikian has more from Washington.
This was apparently a pre-dawn operation that took place hours after the delegates of the International Committee of the Red Cross left the island, left Guantanamo. A statement released by the U.S. military says the guards at Guantanamo have fired 4 rounds at prisoners from non-lethal weapons. They say the detainees covered surveillance cameras, windows, and partitions to prevent the guards from observing them during the ongoing hunger strike. The guards allegedly clashed with the detainees, which military officials say led them to move the captives from communal to single cells. The military says the detainees used improvised weapons to resist the transfer. They say that's when the guards started shooting at the captives. As of now, we have one side of the story, that of the U.S. military. Very soon we'll hear from the lawyers of the detainees and what they have to say. That is, of course, if they have by now managed to get in touch with their clients. It's not clear if, having moved them to single cells, prison officials have also not imposed other restrictions on the prisoners. We don't know that. Guantanamo prisoners have been starving for more than 2 months now, trying to bring public attention to their plight because they sense the administration would rather forget about them. The State Department closed the office that was working to transfer the remaining captives. Half of them have been cleared for release. Their attorneys are saying that the prison has been doing all possible to stop the hunger strike. They've been force-feeding the strikers. There were claims that they brought down the temperature in the cells to make it harder to endure the strike. And now we hear that they put them in solitary confinement and shots have been fired.
For more on this, I'm joined by Cindy Panuco, a lawyer representing one of the Guantanamo detainees, joining us from Los Angeles. Thanks for being with us. So was your client involved in this alleged scuffle?
Well, you know, Matt, I represent Obaidullah, and given the restrictions on our communications with him as his habeas attorneys, we have not been able to be in touch with him to find out whether or not he was involved and whether or not he's doing okay. But our understanding is the same as yours. It's what's gone out and what's been provided to the media, that he has been placed into isolation along with everyone else.
Now, we're hearing that the inmates responded with makeshift weapons. How desperate are they to fight back despite the conditions that they must be under at this point?
Well, it's interesting to find out that they have makeshift weapons. Whenever we have gone down to visit our clients, the only things they are allowed are small ballpoint inserts of a pen. They're plastic, little, almost like straws with ink at the end of them. That's pretty much all they're allowed. So I don't see, especially given the invasive searches that were conducted in February, what kind of makeshift weapons the government is referring to. And that's still to be determined, especially since there's no way they could have any sort of weapons.
Now, why do you think the authorities are trying to isolate the detainees at this point?
Well, they are claiming that it's to be able to monitor their health. But probably if you asked our clients, they'd say this is just another measure that they're taking to make it more difficult to endure, continuing to starve themselves and continuing to protest. If they're together, if they're in communal living space, they can communicate and at least support each other. And now that they're being isolated, it's another form of torment to be taken away from your other friends and comrades who are there with you. It makes it much more difficult to endure what is already a very difficult situation.
Now, for weeks, the U.S. military has assessed the scale of this strike as being less than that which you and some of the other attorneys representing these clients have assessed it as. Do you think that there will be more scrutiny now after this?
Oh, definitely. I hope so. At last count by the U.S. government's numbers, there were about 43 men on strike. My co-counsel who represents Obaidullah, Derek Poteet, visited him just 2 days ago at Guantanamo, and Obaidullah described Camp 6 as looking like a village which had been decimated by some sort of attack, with men just walking around very feebly, very weak, barely unable to have any energy to even communicate with each other. It's a very, very sad, difficult situation, and the reaction of the U.S. is the opposite of what it should be. This strike, the protest could have been resolved with not violence, but by simply agreeing to allow the men to return the Korans to the U.S. government, to surrender them so that they did not have to watch them continue to be desecrated and searched.
Do you think there's an end in sight to this hunger strike at any point?
Well,
68 days now.
68 days now that our client has gone without taking any food from the U.S. authorities. And it appears that rather than do something as simple as allow the men to surrender their Korans, they are instead isolating them, resorting to firing rubber bullets at them, and resorting to tying them down and force-feeding them with tubes up their noses. It appears that unless there's some sort of more international pressure, that the protests will continue and the U.S. will continue in actions that will be retaliatory.
All right. That was Cindy Panuco, a lawyer representing a Guantanamo detainee. Thank you.
Thank you for